Good morning, everyone. Dear members of Parliament, distinguished guests, colleagues and friends, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you today. I think it's a fascinating topic and probably a topic that we should repeat probably on an annual basis. Some members of Parliament have done excellent jobs in the past with organizing Nerds in the Parliament sessions to introduce people to the Internet and how it technically works. And I think the understanding is essential to move on to the other debates that are as crucial, like the Internet governance debates, and both on a local and international level. So we've already touched on the copper and the fiber that connects the plug in your wall to Harold's internet exchanges. We've covered the logic in which data flows through the references that Jean-Jacques made to IPv4 and IPv6. So every single device, whether it's a mobile or your laptop or your car, needs a unique identifier so that devices can communicate to each other. The organization that I represent, CENTR, groups all European ccTLDs. They are country code top-level domain organizations. And what they do is they translate those numbers into memorable identifiers, and they add a layer of security and stability to it. It's pretty obvious why it's easier to memorize www.europa.eu as opposed to, and I'm making this up, but 192.168.24.3. So it's easy to, it's memorable, and it provides people with an identity. That's a crucial part of what country code top-level domains do. As for security and stability, it's important to understand how the system works. It's a hierarchical system. It's distributed and it's redundant. It's hierarchical because the right part of a domain name, the top-level domain, will direct you to the second level. And the second level, in the example that I use, europa.eu, will direct you to the third level, which could be a World Wide Web or a website server, or it could be an email server. So it's hierarchical so that the top level directs you to the levels below. It's distributed because none of these levels are sitting within the same organization. As Jean-Jacques explained, ICANN is setting the policies that will decide on how top-level domains are assigned and are operated. The technical protocols and standards are derived from the technical standards that the IETF is setting. So ICANN is responsible, for instance, for the new GTLD program, which I think most of you are familiar with. On a second level, the zone administrators will set the policies that the domain can be used by the organizations such as the European Union. So none of these policy setting mechanisms happen in the same organization. That's very important to make sure that there is no single point of failure, that there is no opportunity for anybody to take over the way that the naming system in the Internet works. And it's redundant because on all the levels, on the technical, operational level, everything is duplicated close to infinity. You might hear about the 13 root servers. So the information about the top-level domains is kept in a file that is the root zone file. It's you can download it actually from iana.org. It's in a text version. It's probably a 300-page long file that contains all the information about every single top-level domain. So these 13 are perfect copies of each other, but they are the 13 authoritative root servers. If you have a look at the Internet, you will online you will find that there are 4 copies of these in Brussels alone. These copies are then multiplied by probably every single telecom provider or ISP in Belgium and in Brussels, so that on a national level you would probably have close to 100, 200, 300 copies of that root zone file available. So it's hierarchical, it's distributed, and it's redundant. So one thing that has not been underlined yet is that the technical layer of the Internet is typically run in a not-for-profit way, and I'm talking about the Internet exchanges, the ccTLDs, the standards bodies, ICANN itself. Why is that important? Because it underlines the origin of how the industry has shaped up. Most of it is are spin-offs from universities. In Harold's presentation, there are plenty of references to the background relating to the University of Dortmund. That was, I think, and that story is quite representative for what happened all across Europe. Let me give you an example that is close to my heart, and it brings together the technical side of what the DNS does, providing identifiers and security and stability, with the other topic of today, and that's the Internet governance ecosystem. So, an example close to my heart is the way that .be, the operator for the Belgian top-level domain, has started off. It was a spin-off from the University of Leuven that in 2000 was taken over by a not-for-profit organization on request of the University of Leuven, which thought that the whole operational aspect of running a top-level domain was slightly out of its scope. So a not-for-profit organization formed by the telecom users, by businesses, and by the Belgian ISPs took over the management of the .be zone. In addition, they have the government sitting as an advisor on their board of directors. On a regular basis, they're holding wide consultations, in particular with their registrars or agents, as they're called here, which are their resellers. They don't sell directly to the public. And the end users. So this is a mini-scale version of the multi-stakeholder Internet governance models that we're championing on a national, regional, and even global level with the IGF. So the key aspects of a successful multi-stakeholder model in running this technical operation is that policy setting is transparent, the policy process is open to anybody who wants to participate, whether they're academics or businesses or governments or law enforcement. And bringing all these elements together has led to successful growth because multi-stakeholder processes and models might be slow and not always very pleasant to watch, but in the end they're terribly successful to accomplish the technical growth and evolution that we've seen in the Internet today. .be, for instance, grew from roughly 100,000 names in 2000 to 1.6 million today, which probably ends them up as the 20th largest ccTLD in the world. Just talking about numbers, for those interested, in Europe, we have about 17 million second-level domains run under country code. In total, there are just over 200 million domain names worldwide. The majority is still generic top-level domains, so .com or .biznet, and the about 1,000 new GTLDs that were added since May last year. So of that 210 million, about 17 million of those names are in Europe. So Europe can be pretty proud about the penetration rate and the accomplishment of its industry in bringing identifiers to the end users. In Europe, we've seen astonishingly high penetration rates. In the Netherlands, for instance, every one in three Dutch persons have statistically a .nl domain name. They have slightly over 6 million names on a population of 18 million. The odd one out in Europe with an astonishingly high penetration rate, much higher than the Dutch, not part of the EU, but any Anyone has a guess which country that would be? It's Liechtenstein, because there are so many Chinese called Li who registered a name there that they far outnumber all the inhabitants of Liechtenstein. Vatican City must be pretty close, I think, but they are not running an open registry. So, moving to the topic of internet governance. I mean, for most observers, and I think maybe even some people in this room, internet governance is a very fluffy thing, not unsimilar as the internet used to be depicted only a couple of years ago. So it's a fluffy thing, and it's intangible, and people are wondering how it works and who is behind it. Well, on a technical layer, and this is the representation that we've shared with you. And by the way, this is one version. You will have as many as you have stakeholders, which is probably the beauty of it. But this is the representation that we use to make sure that people understand where the technical layer, how they're built up and how they interact with the rest of the internet ecosystem. So I've already told you about the concrete way in which some ccTLDs, and the example was the Belgian one, how they interact with stakeholders, how they bring all those stakeholders to the table, and how they carry that message to the regional international forum. A lot of ccTLDs participate in Eurodig, probably even slightly more participate in the Global Internet Governance Forum. What they do there is translate those messages that they get from their local internet community, the community that they serve, mainly customers, but not restricted to customers, and bring that message to the IGF. Another thing that they do is, on a national level, support, stimulate, and finance National Internet Governance Forum. I think even some CCs in the room have a rather successful National Internet Governance Forum that they run. I strongly encourage you to find the nearest one to you and attend. It's a fascinating event. What you will witness at first looks a bit chaotic, not completely unlike ICANN, but it shows how the system works. You will see people gathering topics on local broadband penetration. For instance, I attended the Swedish one only a year ago. So we started off with discussing local broadband penetration and how that supported businesses and economic growth. And everybody quickly agreed that in Sweden there wasn't really a problem with broadband penetration. Everybody was quite happy with that. And swiftly it moved to broadband penetration, mobile penetration in developing countries, and how that could help developing countries to reach economic growth and improve healthcare and improve education. And so in a room in Stockholm, people came up with best practices and things that they've seen working in other countries and that they would like to export together or bring to the IGF, the forum held last year in Istanbul, and share their stories there. Both success and failure. There have been millions of euros spent on completely failed initiatives. And it's important that people learn from those mistakes and that they drop the bad and take on board the good parts. The important thing for me about the internet governance model is that it's scalable. We've moved from a small group of stakeholders meeting in Leuven to support how DNS Belgium should set their policies, to an international internet governance forum held on a yearly basis. It's scalable because it has a low threshold. Everybody can participate on every single level. There are some flaws in the model. Some parts of the system, of the multi-stakeholder system, are complex. And I think ICANN is a perfectly good example of that. It's a fascinating process to watch and participate in once you understand it. but the learning curve is still too steep. And despite the fabulous efforts of Jean-Jacques and his team, it's incredibly hard to start participating in the IANA stewardship transition or the accountability discussions that are now taking place at ICANN and that are frankly crucial for the way forward for that particular part of the Internet governance model, multi-stakeholder model for the naming community. So let me conclude by pointing out a couple of things that you would typically hear about Internet governance and that I think to be untrue. First of all, it's not a fig leaf. People have said often, even at the Internet Governance Forum, which again underlines the purpose of those meetings, that it's basically a plan from the business community, some even say technical community, to keep on dominating the internet and avoid government regulation. Some have said it's a lightning rod to make absolutely sure that as long as we keep on talking, the ITU will not start taking over the internet. The ITU standing for all those governments that would ruin all the hard work that the technical community has done. While it's probably an unnecessary but still useful wake-up call for those, that governments are already regulating significant parts of the internet, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But the important part is that the regulation is kept to a minimum to allow for technical innovation and growth. What is internet governance? I think there are essential breeding grounds for new ideas. They are crucial places to seed ideas and to exchange best practices. And yes, they are not perfect, and there are a lot of inefficiencies in the system. But as long as nobody comes up with an alternative, I think there are places that we should cherish and nurture and support. So I invite you all not just to keep on attending or supporting the international IGF, but also to visit your local Internet Governance Forum. Thank you so much.